think both of these subjects tie together. The off-season plans of the Indiana Fever and Kelsey Mitchell.
For a team already standing on fragile ground, the timing couldn't have been worse. Caitlin Clark was preparing to return from injury, free agency was looming, and management was quietly trying to plan around new WNBA contract rules. And now their star veteran had dropped a message that made the entire organization hold its breath. It didn't help that within hours, General Manager Amber Cox stepped forward with a statement that sounded less like reassurance and more like damage control. She emphasized that the Fever were focused on controlling the controllables, a phrase that might work in boardrooms but sounded cold to fans desperate for answers. Cox didn't mention Mitchell by name, didn't deny tension, and didn't offer clarity. To many, that silence said everything. Behind the scenes, tension had been building for months. Kelsey Mitchell was more than just another player. She was the backbone of the Fever. When Caitlin Clark went down, Mitchell stepped up, transforming into a scoring machine and emotional leader. She pushed through pain, carried the offense, and gave fans a reason to believe again. But when Clark returned, so did the hierarchy. Suddenly, the spotlight shifted, and everything the Fever did revolved around their golden rookie. Every press conference, every highlight reel, every headline, Caitlin Clark's name led the story. For a veteran who had given years of loyalty to a struggling franchise, it felt like being replaced in her own house. People close to the team described the locker room as respectful but uneasy. Mitchell admired Clark's talent, but resented the imbalance that came with it. It wasn't jealousy, it was about identity. For years, Kelsey had been the Fever's face during losing seasons and rebuilding phases. She had endured the grind, earning her stripes the hard way. Now, after finally reclaiming relevance, she found herself overshadowed by someone new. Even her teammates sensed the shift. Sophie Cunningham, Odyssey Sims, and others publicly praised her leadership, leaving heartfelt comments under her posts that sounded suspiciously like goodbyes. Meanwhile, management spoke in platitudes, focusing on preparation and future planning, while the emotional core of the team quietly began to fracture. When Amber Cox's statement hit the press, it landed like a thud. She spoke of priorities, planning, and labor negotiations, but fans could tell she was avoiding the heart of the issue. The truth was that this wasn't just a player versus team situation. It was an identity crisis for the entire organization. The Fever were being torn between two worlds, the business side driven by Caitlin Clark's superstar power and the emotional legacy represented by Kelsey Mitchell's loyalty. And for a franchise trying to rebuild both credibility and chemistry, that split could prove fatal. Caitlin Clark's eventual comment about Mitchell didn't help either.
It's the question, and I've said, I think there's a good chance she leaves this squad.
She called Kelsey one of the most competitive players I've ever shared the floor with, and said she felt lucky to have played alongside her. It was polite, polished, and full of respect, but noticeably void of one key phrase: "I hope she stays." That omission lit another firestorm online. Some fans applauded Clark for being mature and staying out of drama. Others accused her of being detached, claiming she had already accepted that Mitchell was leaving. The WNBA community suddenly found itself debating something much larger than one player's post. This was about how fame reshapes locker rooms, how loyalty gets tested when business enters the equation, and how much emotion still matters in a league chasing growth. For Mitchell, the silence spoke volumes. After years of fighting for respect, she'd finally proven her worth, only to feel it slipping through her hands again. She had carried the Fever when they were forgotten, and had delivered when it mattered most. Yet when the cameras returned, she became an afterthought in her own story. The message "Zero Gone" wasn't just about her number, it was a declaration, a quiet, poetic rebellion against a system that values flash over foundation. Whether she intended it or not, Kelsey's words became a mirror reflecting the emotional reality of modern sports. You can give everything to a team, but the moment the next big star arrives, your place becomes negotiable. Meanwhile, the Fever's front office found themselves scrambling. Losing Mitchell wouldn't just hurt on the court, it would signal instability to the entire league. Amber Cox knew this. That's why every interview since has carried an undertone of desperation masked by professionalism. She repeated her favorite mantra, "Control the controllables," while knowing that the one thing she couldn't control was how Kelsey Mitchell felt. Inside sources claimed that the Fever had begun quiet outreach to her camp, but the trust had already been shaken. Other teams were circling, sensing opportunity. The Chicago Sky, Atlanta Dream, and even the potential expansion teams were reportedly interested. For those organizations, Mitchell represented the perfect balance: talent, leadership, and humility without the media circus. And that's the irony. Kelsey never sought fame. She played because she loved the game, because she wanted to build something in Indiana. But when fame arrived in the form of Caitlin Clark, it changed everything. Not because Clark did anything wrong, she didn't, but because the system around her shifted priorities overnight. Suddenly, the Fever weren't just a team. They were a brand, a marketing engine built on one player's image. And when business takes over identity, even the most loyal soldiers start questioning their place. As the off-season stretches on, the Fever find themselves in uncharted territory. Caitlin Clark remains the face of the franchise, and rightfully so. She's a generational talent. But every great team needs a heart, and for years that heart was Kelsey Mitchell. If she leaves, the Fever may not just lose a player, they'll lose the emotional glue that kept them together during their darkest days. Her absence would echo far beyond box scores or stat sheets. It would serve as a reminder that in modern sports, loyalty often loses to headlines. And so the question lingers: can the Fever rebuild not just their roster, but their identity? Can they balance fame with foundation, youth with experience, and business with belief? Because if they can't, Kelsey Mitchell's departure won't be seen as a personal decision. It will be remembered as a warning. What do you think, Fever fans? Has Kelsey Mitchell outgrown Indiana, or should the team fight to keep its soul intact? Is this just another off-season rumor, or the first sign of a deeper fracture inside the WNBA's most talked-about franchise? Let us know your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into the stories shaping women's basketball. Your voice keeps the conversation alive.